and share with you that our theme this month is I Walk by Faith. And today's topic is faith without works. What works? What do you suppose? How many people do you suppose believe that faith is trivial? And yet faith colors our lives even in the most trivial of details. When we walk into our darkened home at night, for example, first thing we do is reach for the light bulb, more often the light switch, and sometimes if you have an automated system, you push a button on your phone or whatever, but you reach for lighting that place. And we don't agonize in preparation for doing that. We know that room's going to light when we flip that switch, whatever it is. Of course we don't worry. We're not in fear of that. At the level of our being, far below conscious thinking, we know that a process will be invoked that will cause the light to flood the room. At the level of our being. Many of us even feel that way about cell phones, or our car, or our computer. Well, maybe our computer. But we expect these gadgets, small or large, to work when we walk up to them or get into them. So while you might not consider those a trivial faith, I think we can all agree that where there are the more ordinary factions and actions of our lives are concerned, faith is more routinely, more easily demonstrated. Why do you suppose that is? Well, let's examine it for a minute. Look at the scenario in the dark room. Will believing that the light switch works be enough to illuminate the darkness? Will our faith in electricity as a viable source of energy wipe away the darkness? It's only when we join our beliefs with our actions and flip the switch or push the button that the room lights up. In other words, darkness vanishes when we enjoin our actions with our beliefs. Faith empowers us to act, to transform, and to create. Wow, how's that for a big lesson from Helco? And for those of you not living in Hawaii, that stands for Hawaiian Electrical Company. Actually, Hawaiian Electrical Light Company, that's the L. And as you can see in this example, that faith is at the level of our being, far below our conscious thinking. And it's inextricably linked to what in olden times was called our works, and in today's language would be called our action plan. So if in today's language, faith without an action plan is dead, that is, lacking activity, is devoid of life, is not functioning, or is no longer alive, if faith without an action plan ain't working, it may be time to get with the plan. You know, I have a dear friend who spends more time each day putting on her face than I spend in my spiritual practice. I'm serious. And I'm also at risk here if you ever meet her. But since that's unlikely, I will tell you she is still, though born in another century, a beautiful woman with lovely features. Yet her faith in that, at the level of her being, far below her conscious thinking, is that aging is a mistake. So her action plan is to ignore or cover up the natural beauty and to spend enormous amounts of time righting the wrong. Now, why did I compare that with my spiritual practice? Because the two of us went on a cruise one year to Alaska. And the 2 hours that she spent in the bathroom that we shared to do exactly what I just described was the 2 hours that I went out on the, what we would call a lanai here in Hawaii, and did my spiritual practice. And almost to the minute, when I was finished, her face was on. So I apologize for digressing, but I still have a really vivid picture of that, of someone who, in spite of her beauty, felt that she had to do something more to it. But my purpose in bringing this to you was to point out that I spend, on average, 2 hours in the morning on spiritual practice. So when I travel with her, I have a measuring stick to gauge that passage of time. Now, my best buddy, Ernie Holmes, suggests that if we would take time once a day, at least, to let go of all that is not true and lay hold of reality with a big R, which means it's above as well as around and within us. If we would let go of doubt, distrust, worry, condemnation, and fear, and then take hold of life in its expressions of beauty, truth, and wholeness, we would be healed. An action plan to express and demonstrate our faith. What might that look like? Well, since faith is a belief, working far below the level of our conscious living, it may mean changing some attitudes, some behaviors, perhaps cutting down on the amount of, quote, makeup, unquote, we put on to hide our real beauty and worthwhileness. It may mean changing some of our languaging about who we are or what we are showing up as in this moment, if we expect that to change in any future moments. It may mean walking our talk, practicing what we preach, so to speak. It may mean acknowledging that when we say or do things that do not reflect our highest and best good, we take that into prayer and contemplation with the intention to do better and to be better. But most of all, my action plan is I walk by faith and not by sight. I walk by the one I know is true. When my action plan includes this realization, it grows in direct proportion of my willingness to exercise that belief through action. And though it's undoubtedly true, though few of us truly aspire, inspire, or perspire to become what David Hawkins refers to as the enlightened ones, I do believe that we all welcome peace and oneness with our source of being. There are several reasons each of us shows up here at the Center for Spiritual Living, West Hawaii. We're building our faith through the principles of science of mind for a better life. We look at ourselves and at each other through the eyes of love, to acknowledge these transformations unfolding by means of our dear friends and by means of ourselves. We're building our faith in an atmosphere of openness and acceptance for a life of happiness and, yes, newness. We're building our faith by participating in the action plan for its outpicturing in our life, which says it's alive and functioning and growing and expanding and changing. But most of all, we are building into our faith the beliefs that serve us at the level of our being, far below the conscious level of thinking. Ruth Miller, in her book Unveiling Your Hidden Power, talks about Emma Curtis Hopkins' writings on the use of faith in our lives, both as our foundation and as our word. Our foundation is that our mind demonstrates as much greatness as we have courage to stand by our intention. Our foundation is the strength of inspiration that enables us to see the result clearly. Our foundation is our uplifting and uplifting thoughts in what we think and say that lead the way for us in manifesting our intentions. Our foundation is developing our firmness of faith. We do this by speaking our truth about the manifestation of God's goodness in our lives and in our works. You remember I spoke earlier in this talk about our works, which in today's language is more understood when described as our action plan. So our words of faith go forth from us in the works that take place, like the environments we create and express around ourselves. Our words of faith go forth from us as we can honestly state that we believe there is an omnipotent power which we can understand and use for its healing works in our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual lives. Our words of faith are the exact record of our thoughts. The thoughts we love greatly while we think them produce the conditions that we love. This is called harmony. I see it as a super duper action plan. In the science of metaphysics, we are willing to submit to the power of our own words when we align with the wisdom that created us. The world of phenomena is our unconscious mind made manifest, that is to say, evident. And our unconscious mind is, in turn, a machine being built by our conscious mind. When we speak truth, we are shaping our unconscious mind toward that truth with our words of faith. So I feel pretty certain that after our consideration this morning of what using our faith means in our lives day to day, that we are proceeding enthusiastically toward addressing our works, now described as our action plan. A few moments ago, I said develop an action plan to express and demonstrate our faith. And what might that look like? Well, as I wrote those words, addressing our works, our action plan, I thought of Eric Butterworth and his reminder in the book, The Universe is Calling. So you've developed your intention, your foundation, and you've chosen your words. You are shaping your subconscious mind with your conscious words of truth. You've wrapped all of that up with love in your regular spiritual practice. So now what? Well, here's some advice. The universe is calling. So your next step is to act as if you believe that what you have affirmed is really true. Go and do what comes naturally, and let your expectations come naturally. The Quakers have a delightful phrase for that. They say, when you pray, move your feet. Expect the answer through you. Welcome guidance and direction through your consciousness. Get busy being what you have affirmed. Like little Jack Horner, remember little Jack Horner? I stuck in my thumb and pulled out a plum and said, what a good boy am I. In other words, in metaphysical talk, I prayed. The answer came. I did good. And I move on through the experiences of life, growing and moving forward, onward and upward. Because waiting is not a matter of time. It's a matter of consciousness. It's a matter of becoming a channel for that magnificent creative flow. That means now is the time. This is the moment. Yes. And by the way, that's demonstrating your faith. You know that beautiful power word I urge you to use in spiritual mind treatment. I accept. I accept what I trust and have faith in. So, believe it or not, here's your homework assignment for this week. In the Science of Mind text, there's a whole chapter devoted to faith. It's only 9 pages long. You know, for Dr. Holmes, that's barely a warm-up. That's a preface. And if you're so inclined, bring with you next week to our service one major idea from that chapter that solidifies for you the power and the value of faith. And while we are still in the Zoom room after the service next Sunday, we can share that with each other if you'd like. Or if you'd rather not like, you can do like Arliss does on Tuesday afternoons in our book group. She has a little sign she holds up to remind us how much more time we have in our expression. So if you don't want to talk about yours, if you make a sign and write it in big letters, you can hold it up in front of your face and let us know what it is that solidified for you the power and the value of faith. And so it is.